Okay, so welcome to the session. We've just started recording the Practitioner Forum after our fun playing around with the word cloud. You can see my slides, I'm hoping now. That's all working fine. Okay, and I wanted to actually start with some research from it's on my next slide. Sorry, I can't remember the name of them. Isn't that bad? The Great Divide, Inside Australia's Best Workplaces. So this is a report that's done year on year on year, and Steph has the link. She can pop it in the chat for me, and it also talks to countries as well. So if you're not from Australia, you can click to your country and go and get information. And every year they put out a report on the best places to work. That's ultimately what they're trying to do. And at the end of their report, it tells you the top 30 in workplaces that have been rated as the best place to work. Interestingly, a couple of our clients are in there. I haven't asked if I can mention them, so I'm not going to say who they are, but we have clients who happen to appear on this list. And each year this organization goes and reassesses this. And it's really to help understand the cultural climate, what different employees are wanting. It looks at gender, it looks at age, it looks at leadership style, it looks at how long you've been in the company. It's a great report. You can download it if you want to and have a read. But there was a couple of things that came out that I think help contextualize today. Now, this is not part of the formal session. This is part of what you might need to do to go back and talk and promote to using whole brain thinking in leadership. One of the things that they discovered in their research is about leadership trust and also this link to psychological safety. So in the research that they conducted, it said that executive credibility creates a 42 percentage point swing in psychological safety. So when a leader is seen as credible, whatever that means, credible, then psychological safety increases. Employees with high confidence in leadership report 98% psychological safety versus those 56% for those with low confidence in leadership. The best places to work found that leadership behaviors, when they're consistently executed, it says 97% say their leaders' actions matched their words. So what you say is what you do. Really important. 95% found leaders approachable and easy to talk with. 96% say leadership makes people look forward to work. And then they said, compare this to typical workplaces where only 61% get straight answers, 67% can be themselves at work, measurable authenticity. So it's a really interesting report, which you can download and have a read of. It's quite long. And this is only one small part of the wider report. And what I want to say was, what if there was something that could actually help leaders be aligned? So where actions match words, and others understood that. What if there was a way that we could teach leaders to be more approachable and easy to talk with, or make work a fun place? And this is like, enter whole brain thinking as a non-judgmental common language to help people understand difference and diversity without judgment. Another thing that I just thought was interesting to compare. So they looked at the workplaces, those rated as the best places, so in the top 30 versus the rest. And those workplaces that are sought after to work at, 98% of rating in relation to psychological and emotional healthy place to work. There was a lot in this report that comes out about psychological safety. If that's a thing in your context, definitely have a look at the report and have a read. Management trusts people to do a good job without watching over their shoulders. They had a spelling mistake in their report. Sorry, I took a screenshot. Their shoulders. Management recognizes honest mistakes as a part of doing business. The reason that I'm bringing this up is that when I'm about to introduce the slide deck called Enable Leaders, it is all about these fundamentals. That's what the slide sequence is about. So I wanted to contextualize it in that way first. Any insights? Share in the chat with me. Is this something that you are facing, dealing with? Who is in a position where they actually need to be working with leaders, enabling leaders, creating the psychological safety conditions needed for effective leadership? Who's in that spot, or selling to that spot, or supporting that spot? Interesting that psychological safety, some of these words didn't come out in our word cloud specifically. But we're going to move on. So before I get into the actual slide deck, for those of you who haven't seen this yet, I just want to introduce you to the Rollout roadmap. What we have done over the last year is make or continuing to make available all the resources you need to roll out and embed whole brain thinking for impact. So we've been running these sessions for years since I've been here, and we have made the decision to make these freely available to you in full sequence. So the full deck, the full facilitator guide, the full workbooks, which can be downloaded for free. So you don't have to put out any cash, or you can get us to print the workbooks. The reason is that when you are successful, we are successful. So just this roadmap in a big picture way, if you think of time on the horizontal axis, impact going up the vertical axis. And sorry, this was also created after interviewing over about 200 of you and asking you what you've done and how you've implemented it. When you get to that embedded impact step, what were you doing there? And this is what you guys told us. So first of all, you actually have some kind of strategy. And I did a session on strategy recently, and the main takeaway is that your strategy doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to solve all the problems in an organization based on whole brain thinking. Your strategy could simply be, I'm going to pilot this with a small leadership group. It's an executive team. There's 8 people, and these are the things we want to measure by the end of it. Okay, so strategy doesn't have to be huge. It could be macro, but it also can be micro. The most important thing about strategy, though, is you have a number you are trying to shift. You have a metric, you have something, you're trying to shift that dial. And so in leadership, this work would really align to the use of 360 feedback tools. And I often promote the use of 360 feedback in using whole brain thinking as well, because that's a measure of shifting the dial. There's some great ones. I don't really have them. I'm not affiliated with them, but some of you guys, if you know of any, use any, feel free to share them in the chat. That's a measure of shifting the dial. So you have your strategy, and then what happens? Then you engage that cohort, that group of thinkers to complete the HBDI. And we didn't used to harp on about this engage step right here, but I can tell you that like no time in our history, engagement is critical. Before people go, I have assessment fatigue, or I'm not doing your assessment, or I'm neurodivergent and it doesn't apply to me. There hasn't been this, people are a lot more informed about assessments and can be a little more skeptical. So how are you engaging that thinker group before you even get them to do the HBDI is something that is very important to think about. Yes, it could be as simple as an email that's sent out. It could be a pre-recorded video, or maybe in some cases you have to run an engaged session where you start to set the scene for them. 30 minutes, lunch and learn, something like that. Then you get started into our standard, what's called Get Started workshop. If you ever knew Start Thinking, it has now been improved by the Get Started session. It's a half-day session, and it's in the Practitioner portal in the Rollout tab. After you do that, I'm just going to kick up here into Enable Leaders. That's what the focus is today. I want to talk about the Enable Leaders session. Enable Leaders is a session around helping leaders model the thinking agility needed to use this as a common language each and every day in the flow of work. I'm speaking ahead of myself because it's going to be in a slide in a minute, but they become your champions. They become the ones who start to take this and run with it in organizations, or if you're working as a consultant, they're the ones who become the fans who connect you to other parts of the business moving forward. There are other things you can do, like maximizing teams is also a half-day workshop. Create Impact is a standalone workshop. All of the Business of Thinking modules, if you've ever been familiar with them, they are going to be uploaded soon, probably by the new year, and you'll be able to access them. So if a leader needs support with communication, which was something you mentioned in the word cloud, that might be something you choose to use. And then session 7, evaluate impact. Well, what was the thing you were trying to shift? And did you shift it? And you come back and remeasure it and go, yes, look at that successful learning initiative because we wanted to shift retention, engagement scores, leadership, accountability, whatever it was. And you've been able to identify that thing's moved. And as a result of that, it becomes embedded in different ways. And this is where our consultant network absolutely thrives. Like they support people in full leadership development programs, not just a one-off touch point, which is what I show you today, or sales programs, marketing programs. So a lot of our consultant network actually have created their own particular programs that embed whole brain thinking that kind of follow this roadmap and maximize and turbo boost those skills in those areas. Today, however, I'm just going to focus on this Enable Leaders session. It has been designed as a 2/4 hour session, depending on what you want to include in there. And so I'm just going to give you an overview and then I'll get into the slide deck. So who is going to be involved? The certified practitioner is who runs the session, and the leader or champion advocate of thinkers. And then it can be one-on-one. I just want to say, when I've run this session, there are a couple of things to be aware of when choosing it. Ideally, you could run this as a kind of one-on-one coaching. You could coach a leader through this deck of slides, essentially. You could use it as a coaching conversation if you broke it down with them and took them through the steps. You could also facilitate it if you had a group of leaders working together. So a group of executive leaders, a group of sales leaders, or different leaders from different parts of the business. It is harder to run if you have leader and then direct report in this session. So it's not a session, it can be done, and I have done it, but there are some definite challenges in that context. I just want you to think, if you've got the leader and then you've got their colleague who works under them in the room together, it's going to add some complexity, because sometimes some of the authentic sharing about challenges that leaders have with the direct reports is going to be quietened. So do think about this as being groups of leaders on the same hierarchical level working together, rather than everyone who's a leader. Having said that, I'm going to try the opposite today. But anyway, why is this important? Leaders become the champions and advocates of whole brain thinking, or whatever it is you're trying to shift in a business. They do the work of implementing when you can't. So if you're in a corporate setting, an organization, and you constantly have people coming back and saying, we want more, we want this, we want that, we want something else, you can't do everything yourself. And so you say, hey, I've worked with your leader, and your leader has a whole lot of tools at their disposal at their disposal to go away and start to embed this with you. So, and if you're a consultant and you want to keep coming into the business, then they're the people who are going to get you to keep coming in, because you've created a relationship with them where they now understand the thinking agility needed to go, yes, I've got this. Yes, I can do this. I'm not a victim of my profile. I'm not stuck here. I can be agile and work in different ways. And ultimately, it's all about thinking agility. That concept, I get you to do it all the time. Fold your arms for me. You fold them, you don't think about it. You look down and you have one on the top of the other. Fold them the opposite way. This is what this session is about. It's about going, you know what? I can do it. I can fold them the opposite way. It's about thinking agility. In the blue quadrant, the objectives of the session: how leaders can support the use and application of whole brain thinking. That's what this is about. It's also about how they can use it as a problem-solving solution in common language. You want to teach your leaders that they have something at their fingertips every day. You guys know that already. You're certified practitioners. You probably pull it out at different times when you're getting stuck. Well, if you're not, you should. What's happening? How can you think about it in a whole brain way? And that's what you want to teach them to do. And then you want them to lead or develop thinking agility and lead with thinking agility, because what you prefer isn't always what is needed in the world, especially in today's world of a lot of, well, in my world, chaos, confusion, sick children, changing, disruption. What is it? VUCA and Barney all in one, in my house. And the green quadrant. So how does it work? Before they come to this session, a group of leaders have, one, engaged, back to that roadmap. Two, they already know their profile before they're coming in here. So this isn't your upfront getting started session. They have engaged and understood why they're using whole brain thinking, and they know about the model and they know about their profile. And you've either done that through a workshop or one-on-one debrief or something before this session. Very important, because it gets down to the nuts and bolts pretty quickly, and there's some stuff in there that they need to be able to use effectively during the session. Now, the session can be 2 hours, it can be 4 hours, it can be run as a one-on-one in little smaller chunks. And there is the option to use the pair profile in here. So one of the things that is incredibly powerful to use with leaders is the pair profile, which you may be familiar with if you attended certification recently or a while ago. We've always said the pair profile needs a debrief But what we teach you in this session, there's a lot more flexibility around using the pair profile these days. The pair profile doesn't need a debrief if consent is provided by both parties to generate it. So what we do in this session is we teach the leader how to use the data powerfully, not judgmentally, not boxing and stereotyping and diminishing someone. So we teach them how to use this data in powerful ways to get better outcomes and to lead more effectively. And after the session, there's stuff you can do. I'll show you that in the deck. So now we're in the slide deck. And Steph in the chat there has actually shared the link to the Whole Brain Rollout tab. If you want to use this session, there is a workbook you could get them to follow along with. If you want to condense the time, sometimes I get my groups to do some of the workbook activities before the session, get them to do especially self-reflection. So it's designed in the whole brain way, of course, blue, green, red, yellow slides will appear. So if there was a red quadrant reflection, I say, I want you to do, page 9, page 12, and page 13 before the session. That's the self-reflection bit. I want you to come having thought about yourself before we come into the session. So there's some things you could do. You can edit, modify these slides as needed. They come in a slide deck sequence. So if we get started, the checklist, I've already mentioned this. So they have their profile. They've already attended something like the Get Started session, and they remind them that they have access to the Thinker portal where they can go in and review the Thinker journey if they want to. There is a workbook and the learning outcomes. Reflect on your role as a leader, learn to lead through a whole brain framework, explore how you lead others, and apply new ways to lead others. So all of our sessions in the Rollout roadmap, reflect, learn, explore, apply. They follow that same structure. So if you were ever wanting to design your own sessions after the fact, you could use the reflect, learn, explore, and apply framework to make sure that your future sessions were whole-brained in their design. Ground rules and agenda. So this is where you decide how long you want to run the session for. In terms of ground rules, the most important one here is that you hear the leaders using whole brain thinking and their HBDI in positive language. So I've had a lot of people come back to me where people have had really short, sharp whole brain thinking sessions, and it's been used to stereotype, pigeonhole, judge, label, box others. That is not the intent behind the tool at all, but sometimes it happens. And it often happens when our groups go, yeah, quick, cool, we got this. And they want to, that's good, understood that, let's put it away. And so it's our job to say, yeah, you understand it, but what else, what next, what if? And this is where we start to help them understand this concept of thinking agility, because hopefully yellow, yeah, is my next slide. The objective here is to help leaders develop the agility to support others using whole brain thinking. What we're really trying to get to is leadership support to create embedded impact at scale, a problem-solving solution and common language adopted at many levels of the organization. That's where we're trying to head. And so understanding at which level you're working is important, at which level of leaders, but I think it's about giving them some of the tools to take this further. And then, of course, our red quadrant would come in. So this is where the leader, Mickey Mouse, in my sample case here, I didn't know it was Mickey, reflects on how they lead. What do you prefer and enjoy as a leader? What happens to your thinking under pressure? What work approaches excite you? How do others see you? Based on what you've learned, what are your challenges, opportunities? How do they relate to the quadrants? So these types of questions, and even in the questioning itself, thinking under pressure, that question connects to the dotted line. What work approaches excite you? That connects to the work elements data. How do others see you? That question connects to the key descriptor data. And all of this is explained. If I end my show, might get messy. Under the slides here, you're going to see the notes. So if I was a good facilitator, I'd probably just check that I'm actually teaching you the right thing. But under each of these slides, go to workbook page 4. Talk about a note on creating psychological safety. So lots of things to help and support you in doing this. So we had a good reflect as leaders, and I'd love to know before I go into the next step, this is a question for the chat. Who do you lead? Who do you lead? Tell me in the chat. Let's help contextualize this for us in our group. Who do you lead? If you don't lead anyone, you can tell me that too. Okay, clients lead self. I like that. Very true. Learners, self and a team, clients and self. No one presently. Others, consult. So I want you to think about, if you're thinking you don't lead anyone, I want you to think of how you lead yourself, particularly because you need to lead with thinking agility. In fact, I have this cool thing. I don't do it in certification, but I do it. I try to do it. I don't run many anymore, but in the public facing workshops. And I try to get the groups to guess my thinking at morning tea. And I want them to guess me as a whole brain thinker. I want them to guess that. Because if I've truly been modeling whole brain thinking and moving through the quadrants and giving them what they need, they should be able to see all quadrants come out. So I test myself, and then later I get more authentic with my thinking. But what I'm trying to do is lead with the idea from the very beginning that you guessed this square profile of me. This is not my profile. This is my profile, but I'm trying to demonstrate to you how I can be who you need me to be. Well, what they actually do, the blue-green thinkers guess me as blue-green, and the red-yellow thinkers guess me as red-yellow, and then the other thinkers, people think if I can give them what they need, they think I'm more like them initially. And I say, this is me being agile in my thinking. And that is, I'm leading myself first. Because if I become a victim to my own profile, then I can't help anybody else when I'm getting stuck. I can use it as an asset, 100% use it as an asset, but I also can't get stuck there. So as we go through this, I want you to be thinking about, you guys all lead learners, all of you lead learners, whether you're doing it right now or not, at some point you lead learners. And even if the learners don't know yet, you're going to be leading them. And if they're clients who you haven't found yet, you're going to be leading them as well. So we're going to use this context of leading learners to think about how we lead moving forward, because we all do it. We're all in that space at some point. I would like us to try and use the annotate tool. So what I want you to do is go and find the annotate tool. It's a pen. It sometimes appears under, you're viewing my screen. It sometimes appears under the bottom bar. Zoom changes this up on me every now and then. And in the annotate tool, you can select a stamp which has a tick on it. And what I want you to do on the screen here is think about your learners, the learners that you lead or have led in the past, a group you've led in the past. And I want you to, it says 5, just pick 3. Thanks, Jason. You're on top of it. I can see you commenting. Well done. So I'd love you to select 3 things. Now, if annotate isn't working for you, which there could be reasons for that, just pop the words in the chat for me. So if you can read the words, you just have to pick 3. 3 words, just pop those words in the chat. If annotate's not working, pop them in the chat. What do your learners want from you? To now that, thank you for those who are typing in the chat. I'm just going to try and actually, Steph, you've got you could do it for me if you don't mind. Just the words that came up in the chat. Can you just keep stamping for me in the chat words? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Then I can keep talking. So what interesting thing happens when I run this exercise, and I want you to reflect truthfully here on yourself, is Did you select things that you want your team to want? Or did you select things that they truly ask you for? Did you select things that you want them to want? Or did you select things that you have heard them actually ask you for? Just have a think about that, because if you think, so change your stamp if you think, and this is not a judgment, but this is something that comes out of this slide every time. Change your stamp to a cross or a star. And if you think that you selected what you want them to want, that's fine. I want you to answer the question now with a different stamp about what they actually out loud say they need from you. Because this funny thing happens in this slide every time I do it, is people go, oh, yeah, I just marked what I want them to want. I just want them to want this. And not truly thinking about what they want themselves. Answers and solutions. Yes. Should add that one, Julie. And so this is a little warning about this page. When you are looking at the data of this team in front of you, of leaders or group of leaders, I want you, you're going to have to come into this session knowing enough about the thinking of the people you're leading right now and what they are truly asking for. And if the leader doesn't know, which many don't, there's a problem, because the leader's assuming, and the leader needs to ask their people they lead, what do you want? In fact, one of the ways I start most of my face-to-face facilitations is, what do you want out of this session? And that is me upfront asking the question, what do you want from me? And then I map it to the 4 quadrants, and I keep it for me as a guide to help me understand what they're needing, and not assuming what I think they're needing. Because if you've heard any of my stories about my failures in running workshops, you know, I've had amazing successes, but I've also had failures. And those failures have always come when I've assumed what people want and not actually asked the question out loud. So what do you want? What you think they want versus what they truly want are different things. They often want everything on a silver platter. Exactly. They're like, hey, we want this leadership program in 1 hour. I've got 1 hour. Can you do it? Absolutely. This is where you need to unpack this. What do they want from you? So that was just a little note about that page as I run it. When I ask this question, what do your team want from you? That requires the ability to step into their shoes and see it from their perspective. Truly see it from their perspective, not from your own perspective. And 9 times out of 10, most people see it from their perspective first, and then we pause and we go, is it really what they want? And we ask it again. And we find, not with every group, definitely not, but let's just say the majority. So you can turn off annotate if you like. It will continue to star my screen. So what I then go on to talk about is this concept of thinking agility, your profile, what needs to happen, and your team's profile. So here we would get the leaders to really understand the connection between these 3 things. You have a way of thinking, and your thinking filters how you see the world. The world needs you as a leader to be agile and operate in different ways, because you've just told me what your team wants from you. And, you know, you want to support them, but they want outcomes and metrics. For example, that's the red and the blue quadrant showing up. So, and then in the last category here, over here in your team's profile, this is around, what does the profile of the team actually show me? And I would put their profile. It's coming up. Put their profile if I know it, have it, if they've done it. And if they don't have it, know it, done it, I would start to guess. What is it? What do you think it's going to look like? What words do they use? What language do they say? And then pose this question, what does this suggest about your need to adopt thinking agility? I know many of you work with client groups that have a high blue-green preference, and many of the facilitators that come through have a high red-yellow preference. And so constantly you're having to adopt thinking agility to provide that audience with what they need and want, and adopt the agility to go there. Now, it can't just stay there. You can't just go and meet them where they need to be met and just go, yeah, we're happy now. I've made you happy. I've given you what you need. You actually also have to stretch them. But there's no point stretching them if you can't stretch yourself first. And that's what this is talking about, this slide. It's about how do you as a leader understand your preference, recognize thinking agility, and be agile in a way that your team needs you to be. And then, oh, sorry, I'm still starring all over the place. Clear those drawings. And then that was our yellow slide. And then we'll go into a preference map if we had it, or we'd guess it if we didn't. And this is where the leader is starting to clue spot or really understand what the team needs. How does it align and stretch their thinking? What ways do they need to be and adopt thinking agility? And here, as a facilitator, I'm listening to their language. I'm listening to the leader of this team. You know, say they were high green quadrant and they're leading this team. Oh my gosh, they're up with the fairies. They're so scattered. They never follow through. I'm actually listening for the language of the leader to help make sure that they're using positive language and help them understand what the team want and need, because this is where if a leader can't model this in positive, helpful ways, it starts to unravel. And so this is where I'm trying to understand that from a leadership group. As I said, if they have the team preference map, I would hand each one out, or I'd get them to guess it and get them to guess where they need to stretch. I mean, tell me in the chat, when you are leading learners, where do you need to stretch? Like, what is a stretch for you? I'll share my stretch, and it really, I really find it hard is timing. So I can keep to time, no worries. And I'll finish on time, and I'll pull people out of breakouts, but it grates against my red quadrant because I want to let people talk. I want to have them express, but I know that for the overall outcome, I just have to say, hey team, you're going to have a hard stop here. And that's a hard stop. And then they move on. Anyone who came on cert or one of my certs recently will experience that. So you got 10 minutes. And so for me, hopefully it doesn't appear that way too much, but it is, I'm exhausted afterwards of that stretching into that green quadrant, that cutoff, that timing. I also get stretched, even though I sit as well in the yellow, of too much yellow. I get stretched into the extreme of yellow because we want to explore, we want to consider what if, and that's not me having to stretch my thinking, that's me having to quiet it down. So not only do I have to be agile in doing something I don't like to do, I have to be agile in reining in something I love to do and getting carried away with the red. So this is me trying to explain to you that agility isn't doing what you don't prefer. It's not like, oh, I'm not blue, I'll just go blue and then I'm agile, woohoo, good me. Being agile is recognizing in the situation you're in, too much of my yellow is not helpful as well. So rein that in. So it can be doing too much of something, or it can be doing not enough of something. And this is where this comes into play. I can see sharing some of those things there. Red. Comfortable with ambiguity. Oh, yes, that's a really good one. People who are comfortable with ambiguity, and then sometimes in a workshop of learners, those who are leading and they're not. And they have to have the trust to go with you to get to that clarity. So that's a bit about what this page is about. And then we'll finish with some summary facts in this chunk. Now, just to, I don't need to read them off a page, you can read them, but just to reflect on that chunk of learning, that was 30 minutes and whole brained, red, yellow, green, blue, okay, in a condensed format. That's what you could be focusing on there. And then we get into the next chunk. Now we're exploring how I lead others through a whole brain, or how I lead through a whole brain lens, I should say. Again, another 30-minute chunk. So let's go red quadrant first. This is the reflection part. This is interesting because it's about the task now. So when you consider the tasks, sorry, I should read off the screen. Consider the demands, tasks, requirements or expectations of those you lead. Map these to the quadrants or the clusters if that's more helpful. And how does this align to the preference of the team? So why this page is really important is that this is about what needs to get done in a team. So forget what we love, forget what we prefer, what actually needs to get done. Now, when we are teaching someone whole brain thinking, let's go back to the annotate tool. I want you to tick for me with the annotate tool. What are the demands, requirements, and expectations of those coming to your sessions? What do they expect? It might be a bit similar to what came out earlier. What do they expect? Pick 3 things. I love that in the first ticks we got red and then we got blue. So there's differences coming out there. On time. Now, as you're ticking what they need, and the things they require, the demands, the expectations. I mean, maybe they have to pass at a certain. They have to pass something. They have to tick a box. That could be something that they have to get things done. It's coming out. And this is where you're starting to unpack the positive language of whole brain thinking even further. So instead of it being, oh, you know, that team that were off with the fairies and like never follow through, now we say, no, what they need, what they expect, and what they need to do to get the job done is strategy. They need holistic vision. They need to create, or whatever it is, insert the demand here. Imagination, teacher, communicator. It's interesting some of the things that they're not picking, like they don't want to break the rules. Interesting. But do they need to break the rules? So this is another conversation that comes out of this page. In some context with your leaders, they actually have to stretch the team to do the thing they're not choosing to do. Like we work in this pretty volatile climate at the moment, you know, politically and socially, and what's happening in the world. And so sometimes we really have to think differently about things we've always done in the past, even AI. We have to think differently. And so this is also where the conversation comes out around, well, actually, do we need to be doing things that we haven't done before? Do we have to stretch into clusters or quadrants or words or attributes that we haven't? And identify those. In some organizations and groups of leaders, yes. Actually, the requirements are that we are breaking rules and taking risks and doing things we haven't done before, versus other contexts, which is don't change don't, like, this is how we do it, keep it conservative, keep it in control, we know how we do it, this is what we need to follow through. So thinking about that is an important conversation as it plays out in this page. And then we move to, so this is where I was saying I like to get them to do the thinking in advance and then bring it to life in the classroom, and they talk about it in the classroom, especially for those introverts who want to process before they express themselves. And then I introduce this picture. Now, this picture is really about how to teach leaders to be agile using the whole brain lens. So what it's doing is connecting a couple of things needed of agile leaders. First of all, the vision and big picture, it overrides, or it underpins, or it's the umbrella of where the team are headed, or where the group are headed, or the organization. So what can the leader articulate? Vision and big picture, full stop. Yes, no, clear, unclear? They need that. Then do they recognize, based on that vision and big picture, the outcomes of what need to happen? This is what has to happen to make the job work. That might be, we need to be thinking in an agile, creative, different way. That needs to happen. Or we need to be adopting psychological safety, or we need to be releasing our product, 3 months faster than we are. That needs to happen. So we know what needs to happen. Then we go to, well, what does the team want and prefer in relation to that need? So they understand both things. The team prefer to collaborate, connect, communicate, but what needs to happen is launch the product in 3 months' time. So they connect the dots. And then what the leader actually does with their team is put together actions and tactics to make that happen. Helps them with the rituals, with the meetings, with the one-on-one, whatever it is, that there are particular actions and tactics. And effective and agile leaders don't even know that that's what they're doing. They know the big picture, they understand where they're heading and the outcomes, they connect with what the team members want, and they put processes, structures, and actions in place to make that happen. That's the machine that's working. And it's whole-brained in its nature. So then we go back to a mapping the task, which I think many of you have seen this. Mapping the task, you think about a particular real world task that needs to be done, and you teach them how to map that task. And what the last step is the most important one here, green quadrant. What steps do the team need to take? This is where you make it tangible, action-based, and action-focused. Because that's where sometimes we get unstuck. We know it conceptually, we feel it, but do we actually have the processes in place to shift our leadership strategies or shift our way of behaving? And again, summary of facts. Not going to read them off the slide, but that's what you would have talked about in that 30-minute chunk. Which now brings us to the last one, which is about applying new ways to use whole brain thinking. Now, this last session can be extended if you're going to use the pair profile or condensed if you're not. So if you're using pair profiles in here, you would be extending it. First of all, we need to continue this idea that leaders speak positively about the preferences of all, that they don't have a negative connotation around certain thinking styles. Really, really important for effective leadership that we don't go, oh, you know, the number cruncher over here in the blue. Oh, she's crying in a corner. You know, and this is stuff that literally I heard in groups where I hear things like, leave your emotions at the door. They're not welcome in this team. Really, I hear that. And you'll have your own examples of that. So we've got to shift that if it needs to be shifted. And this is about them recognizing the thinking agility in those they lead. They need to recognize and celebrate that and communicate that. And then we get into the pair profile. So the main thing I want to say about the pair profile here, and actually go to the notes in the guide, is that you need consent to share this pair profile. So it's like it's Rosie and it's Gabby, and I'm the leader. And Gabby, I'm going to workshop. Ask Gabby, hey Gabby, can I generate this pair profile together? And I'm going to learn how to understand it in the session. And essentially, you're teaching them what you were taught in certification and how to look at information and data in a positive way and how to facilitate communication as a coach. It's kind of teaching the leader to be a coach, to coach through this conversation positively. And so it's teaching them about how to ask open-ended questions. It's teaching them how to look at the data in non-judgmental ways. And it's teaching them how to bring that conversation back and use that information to work with those individuals one-on-one more effectively. So there's some guidelines around, you know, confidentiality, set the context, real-world examples, discussing pair profiles. And it's all about non-judgmental, judgment-free conversations. Super powerful capacity of leaders, I'm sure we would all agree. Nothing like a leader who judges you and tells you that, you know, your red quadrant needs to go and sit in a corner, or whatever it might be. That red quadrant gets a workout in my life and language. Not personally, just the people I hear. Lastly, we'd move into understanding what leaders have learned is the whole brain model and the HBDI. It's like the map and the GPS, and the two go together. So we talked to that concept. I'll just go back to it doesn't really matter if I show the slide deck. This is another great exercise which many practitioners, and you guys already use this exercise. It's around, okay, now we've got a problem. We need to solve this problem, and we're going to use whole brain thinking to do it. So this is an exercise around using whole brain thinking to solve a leadership challenge, taking a particular challenge that they've shared, or you give them a particular challenge. The interesting thing is it says, what questions do you need to ask to deal with this particular challenge? Because rather than leaders knowing all the answers, we're trying to teach leaders that they should be asking the questions and asking the right questions. And this is about helping them do that, asking the questions to get the better outcome from their team. Again, it finishes with a summary of facts of what they've learned in this chunk. And then what? So Mindshift Mail, if you haven't heard about this, Mindshift Mail was launched at our last practitioner forum. If you want to enroll yourself right now, you can. What is it? It is an application email program with 12 months worth of uses and applications of whole brain thinking. You get, why do we have it? To keep the learning alive, to help you use and apply whole brain thinking, to increase your return on investment, and to develop your self-coaching skills. Or in this case, how I might use it is I would say, I want you, leader X, to go away and enroll in this program. And then I want you to take the 12 exercises and run them with your team. They're very straightforward. They're very self-explanatory. And so it's giving the leader the control and autonomy to help shift the thinking of their teams as well in those areas you can see right here. How do they do it? Scan the QR code. So if you want to scan that QR code, you can do that, or get in touch with us and we can get you access to that as a practitioner, but also your thinkers can access that. What else do I finish with, depending on the context, say you're with a group of sales leads or human resource leads, they then want to go, oh, well, what else can we do with this stuff? What's next? What else? How can we apply it? And there's a whole lot of resources in the practitioner portal called applications in business. So if you were to go into the practitioner portal and you were to search application in business, and I had one prepared for us, here they all are. Executive leaders or customer service, whatever it is, and you can leave them with a hand up. Here's how many ways? 10 ways to go now and use it. Go forth, apply, embed, continue. So there's a whole lot of application tips around that. And then in the session, I connect back to the roadmap. So I showed you guys this earlier already because it was a context and contextual piece. But for this group, this is where I talk to the roadmap and explain where they're at, where they could go next, what might be happening next, depending on my initiatives. And I believe that's the end. Oh, 1 minute to go. Okay, so that was the session. To access the session, Steph had shared the Rollout tab, which you find here. And you're going to see, strategy phase. If you need help with that, this is the engage slide deck. This is the get started slide deck. Today we were talking about the enable leaders deck and materials. So that's where you can access it. That's where it lives. A facilitator guide, slide deck, thinker guidebook, flyer. And then there are others, and there is more. Oh, and they continue on. Create impact, evaluate impact, and there's going to be more coming very soon. So thank you for today. I will love you and leave you here right on time. So I'm going to stop sharing. I look forward. I get to see the download rate. So people who are clicking and downloading that, I get to go, woohoo, cool. I know this is helpful and making an impact. But if you do want to get in touch, the only other thing to say, how do you know who to get in touch with? Because we have new staff. You go to contact us in the page here, and you're going to find a contact with your account manager and your support team. Any one of those people are there to support you with this moving forward. And obviously most of you have my details as well. And you're welcome to get in touch. I look forward to seeing you in December at our final forum of the year. Should be exciting. Thank you, and I shall see you all soon.